So let's go through some of these election results and then we'll talk about some of these opportunities for wins in November as we go. So, of course, the governor's race, and actually, I'll start with some numbers that Denise just sent me. I think an update just to see where we stand in the grand scope of things. When we look at the latest primary election returns, and this is from the California GOP. Republican ballot returns were at 2.4 million, which was 50% of Republicans voting in the election. Democrat ballot returns 4.2 million. No party preference and other ballot returns 1.7 million. Unknown ballot returns 63,000. So Democrats and no party preferences had to vote for Hilton as well to get him into the midterm. So there are a lot of people out there who say that Democrats, no party preference people won't vote for a Republican and that this is going to be an uphill climb for Steve Hilton. That's not necessarily the case. Where we need to start is by unifying our own party. And I know probably some of you on this call were Chad Bianco supporters. And look, I never took a line in this election because I really wanted people to vote their heart. I am friends with Steve. I am friends with Chad. Um, there was no spoiling that went on. I mean, thankfully, I think everybody kind of got their votes in, and so there wasn't a situation where we had any spoiling on the Republican side. But what I will say is pretty ugly is how things got dirty. Not necessarily between the candidates. Yes, there was some mudslinging between Steve and Chad and Steve, but by and large, the dirty stuff happened with all of us, with the supporters, with people who were supporting Steve, who didn't like Chad supporters, and the Chad supporters who didn't like Steve supporters. All of that needs to end. We're the minority party in this state. And so whether or not you're upset that Steve Hilton won, we need to get behind him because the other choice is Javier Becerra, who was handpicked by Democrats because he's controllable, because they can tell him what to do and he will be the robot to deliver. There is a reason that Tom Steyer was pushed out of this primary by the Democrat Party, and that is because Tom Steyer was not controllable. He is a Democrat, yes. He is a far left nut, yes. But he also has a ton of cash. And people with money are not controllable because Democrats can't own you when you have your own money. So Steve Hilton benefited in some ways from the Democrats not trying to push Tom Steyer into that second position. Javier Becerra, just a few months ago, was at 4 to 5% of the vote, and now he was at like 22 in the election returns, which we'll go through. He's at like 26, 27%. That was fully manufactured by the Democrat Party. That wasn't Democrat voters. That was the Democrat Party saying Javier Becerra was the best they could do. He was the one that was controllable, and they spread the message to their friends in the media, who then put him out as like, oh, the front runner, like just magically out of nowhere. He's done nothing in his life. He will run California into the ground. So the point is, whether or not your feelings were hurt about Chad or Steve or whatever, the time is now to unify behind Steve Hilton. And he's done some really incredible things, including running as a ticket, which I thought was a completely fresh idea and something I think Republicans need to use moving forward. So he had the golden ticket with Gloria Romero for lieutenant governor, Michael Gates for attorney general, Herb Morgan for controller. And guys, all four of those candidates are advancing. That's incredibly good news. And today there was a press conference in which Gloria Romero and Steve Hilton said, hey, we're running as a ticket, which might seem like, okay, well, big deal, they're running as a ticket. But no, as they go out, they're going to be helping uplift one another. This doubles our efforts using less resources. This is the kind of stuff Republicans need to do. And I am sure that coming down the pike, we're going to hear the same thing from Michael Gates for AG, from Herb Morgan for controller. I'm guessing Sonia Shaw as well will probably join that ticket, and Don Wagner for the Secretary of State, so that all of the Republican candidates that are moving forward are going to be able to help uplift one another. Believe me, a win for one of them is a win for all of them, and for all of us, for that matter. So as it stands today in the governor's race, and forgive me for using my phone, but you know, these numbers, after a long day, you don't remember them. Javier Becerra is still in the lead. He's at 28% of the vote with 2.5 million people who voted for him. Again, does anybody, I mean, do we all believe this? I believe that 2.5 million people voted for him, but I believe they didn't want to vote for him. They were told to vote for him. Democrats are lemmings. Republicans are too much of an independent thinker, and sometimes we drive ourselves nuts because we can't unify behind one person. All right, in second place, Steve Hilton is there with 24.9% of the vote, 2.2 million votes. Then you've got Tom Steyer, who came in third with 2 million votes. He was really catching up to Steve Hilton. President Trump has been saying, had he not started putting on the pressure, that you would have started to see Tom Steyer start to overtake Steve Hilton. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's certainly what Trump said, and he's been saying for the last 3 days. And then you have Chad Bianco, who came in fourth with 10% of the vote and about 919,000 ballots in for Chad. Now, obviously, it's great news that we have a Republican to vote for many reasons moving into November. But also, if we're realists and we do the math and we just count up the top four candidates, we see 2.2 million ballots for Steve, about 900,000, maybe a million ballots, let's just say when all is done for Chad. That's going to bring us to 3.2. You just add together Tom Steyer and Javier Becerra, and you just with those two Democrat candidates have over 4.2 million votes. And this was during a primary, not a general election. And there were also about 30 other Democrats in there as well. So Republicans have a problem, which means all hands on deck to get our candidate elected. Now, here are some places where I think Steve Hilton can make up some ground with the Democrat candidate. Steve, if he can convince Javier Becerra, and I think this will be an uphill climb, to debate, will wipe the floor with Javier Becerra, which would have a huge impact, I think, on those middle of the road, no party preference voters, maybe those Democrats who have lost faith in the system, some of those crossover votes. Steve has got a lot of policy that he has written. And he's been doing it for the last 4 years. If you look at the policy on Javier Becerra's website, and I just did it. I think I did it yesterday on the air. For instance, homelessness. We have an issue with affordable housing. We will make housing more affordable. Well, the question is how? If you go to Steve Hilton's website, you're going to see like 16 paragraphs about affordable housing. You were going to see how he is going to deliver on $3 a gallon gasoline. If we talk about these issues over and over again, if we get them highlighted on a debate stage, this is going to resonate, I think, with people who are suffering, especially financially. One of the things about Steve Hilton that we could say is that he is not an ideologue, and that may bother some of you, or you may love it. But he's a populist. He's very much like President Trump. President Trump is not an ideologue. President Trump is a populist. If there is a problem, he wants to solve it. That's very much the same kind of take that Steve Hilton is giving people. So what I would say is that we're going to get a lot of common sense ideas from Steve Hilton. It's up to us to push those out there. Again, using our groups, our voices, and our social media to try to get California to hear, wow, $3 a gallon gasoline sounds great compared to Javier Becerra, who would vote to keep the gas tax and wouldn't want to change anything and would keep the Gavin Newsom energy policies that have failed all of us, more of the same. And I think, speaking of President Trump, that he can really help us in the governor's race, because there's one thing that he can do. Javier Becerra is not going to want to debate Steve Hilton. And the Democrats, honestly, they don't have to put him up to debate Steve because they think they are going to walk away with victory in November. President Trump can help. President Trump can embarrass Javier Becerra and Gavin Newsom to try to, from a national level, to try to push a debate. And I hope that's what he does, because you're going to have to shame these people into doing something into doing something that might cost them a few points to save face. And so I would hope that President Trump is ready. It seems like it. He's been talking about Steve every day for the last week. So let's hope that he can put some pressure on to try to draw Becerra into a debate, because I don't think he's going to go willingly. That's an opportunity for Steve. There's also a lot of scandals around Becerra, which is an opportunity for Steve. And Steve has a really good platform with the media and is very well media trained to get those scandals out into the public so people actually hear about them, because we know the media likes to bury those kinds of things in the public sphere in California. So some opportunities for Steve, from real policy to some of the dirty political shenanigans. You got to push some of the scandals of Becerra. You have to get President Trump to try to help out, trying to push him to a debate stage because they're not going to go willingly. So at this point, that's where we are in the governor's race. We've got to unify. We've got to move ahead. Now, really, the same situation lies in these other candidates that ran with Steve Hilton. They've all advanced in the lieutenant governor's race. Gloria Romero was leading for a really long time. Now it comes down to her and Fiona Ma. Fiona Ma is, of course, a California institution. She received 19% of the vote, 1.5 million votes. Gloria Romero, though, right behind her with 1.4 million. Now, a lot of other candidates were in this race, but there were Republicans and Democrats. So I actually, of all of the races that we have in front of us, I really feel good about Gloria Romero with Lieutenant Governor. First of all, she's been a Democrat. She knows how they play. She can articulate why she is no longer a Democrat. She's very good at getting out there. And to say that she has a little bit less ground to close than some of these other candidates, I think this is an opportunity for Republicans, at least at the statewide level, one that we shouldn't sleep on. So if there's an opportunity to donate or to volunteer or to walk, this would be one of those great races. Of course, you want to do that for governor, but sometimes people forget about controller or lieutenant governor, and I think Gloria has a good shot. Don Wagner also did pretty well. The difference in vote counts is so interesting. So you'll see when these races are smaller, there were only four people in this race for Secretary of State. Shirley Weber, 4.9 million. She's the incumbent. Don Wagner at 3.1 million. So he's trailing behind. There were a couple of other people who were in the race that totaled about 400,000 votes. So again, an uphill climb for Don Wagner in this rematch, but Don has not been campaigning at all. He has saved all of his resources, all of his funding for the general. He chose not to campaign at all for the primary. So once he jumps in, and he's involved with some lawsuits now talking about California's ghost votes and all of these things, if he can get a little more press, get out there, maybe there's some opportunity. And that's a really important office because once again, we can't change the state until we fix what's wrong with the voting system. And the Secretary of State is key to that. In the controller's office, in the controller's race, again, we have kind of similar numbers to what we saw with Don Wagner and with Shirley Weber. Malia Cohen, who is the incumbent, got 56% of the vote. She'll square off against Herb Morgan, who got 37%. They're separated by 1.5 million votes. So again, an uphill climb, but maybe as part of the golden ticket, Herb Morgan comes along with what Steve and with Gloria are doing. For treasurer, and I know this was a weird one for Republicans because we had two Republicans in the race, some loud Republicans actually in the race. We had a lot of people going. And so our results there are Jennifer Hawkes, who is the Republican candidate at 24%, and just give me another political job, Eleni Kounalakis, who is just a career politician, was in at 36% of the vote. Those two were separated by 1 million votes, but you had a lot of other people in this race. You had other Democrats. David Serpa did really well. He got 1 million votes just himself. So this one I think is also an opportunity because it's one of those offices that is not super sexy, but Eleni Kounalakis, as much as she is a career politician, nobody knows who she is. She's hidden in the shadows for so long, just operating for her next job. And she wanted to be governor. It didn't work out. So I think there is also an opportunity here. Now, Attorney General, this would be, I think, the most consequential of all of the offices that we talked about, aside from governor. Having a Republican in the Attorney General's office would be incredibly great. All of these lawsuits against the Trump administration would disappear. The investigations into fraud, the investigations into the criminality within our counties, this would be such a huge improvement. And Michael Gates was the Republican candidate. He received 3.2 million votes. Rob Bonta, 4.8 million. So again, they're separated by that same margin, 56-38. Here's where my advice to Michael Gates, and I think just talking to him on the air, I don't know him personally, but we've met a few times. I've talked to him on the air. You have to go after the scandal. The fact that Rob Bonta is such a flawed candidate, steeped in scandal, and is supposed to be our lead, like law enforcement guy, our lead when it comes to lawsuits and lawfare, he needs to be called out in a big way. And I think with the media's attention right now on fraud and the fraud task force and some of the stuff that California is delivering, there is an opportunity to pick up some momentum if Michael Gates and these other Republicans that are running for these top ticket races are willing to call him out. I think in the past, Republicans, we are our own worst enemy. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. Not only do we not unify very well, but we also a lot of these establishment Republicans, I don't think it's us so much in the grassroots, but Republicans in the establishment do not want to fight dirty. And I don't even mean fight dirty in a way that's illegal. I mean just call people out for what they are, which is under investigation in most of these offices. These people have been so steeped in controversy for such a long time, and they get a free pass by the media. They get a free pass many times from Republicans that run against them. So the time is now to have strong candidates who are not afraid to tell people who these elected officials really are and how they haven't been serving us, but instead serving their own interests for a long time. So that's, I think, one of the important things to remember as we look at some of these statewide offices. Now, one thing I wanted to touch on, and that is insurance commissioner, which seems, again, like a snooze fest. But obviously, given all the fires and the problem people are having in California with getting insurance, and our current insurance commissioner, who has been just gallivanting all around the world on the taxpayer dime, not even worried about what California is facing, there is need for improvement. The Republican candidate, Stacey Korsgaden, didn't advance, but I do want to give your attention to someone that I think, as a Democrat, is someone that we should be looking at. So Stacey Korsgaden was the Republican candidate. She got 15% of the vote, 1.2 million votes. She came in third place, behind Jane Kim, who is the Democrat in first place with 27% of the vote. 2.2 million people supported her. Ben Allen, 19% of the vote, also a Democrat, got 1.5 million votes. But here's an opportunity for us, even though it's a Democrat-Democrat race. From what I'm hearing, and I've been talking to Joel Pollack at the California Post quite often about what's going on in Palisades, is he says that Ben Allen, even as a Democrat, is actually a really good person for this position. He understands the job. He actually has done the job, and he's been very involved with helping people in Palisades start to recover and get their homes back. So even though we don't have a Republican to support in November in this race, I'm looking at these numbers. And if you take Stacey's 15% and we can get all of that Republican support behind Ben Allen, he easily beats Jane Kim, who will probably be just more of the same. So again, that's one to write down. I know we won't normally cover Democrats, but I always say we'll vote for a Democrat if it's better than the worst case scenario. And so Ben Allen seems to be that person. So just to share that bit of news. I know we had some good news when it came to the Board of Equalization, and this is another this is another job that they've taken away a lot of power from. But certainly it is still important because the State Board of Equalization has a big role in property tax oversight, which is hugely important, alcoholic beverage tax, tax on insurers, the appeals process. And in these races, we've advanced Republicans in all of the districts. There are four of them. One is appointed, and so that's really good news because we need to have a Republican in there, especially when it comes to our taxes and keeping an eye as a good steward on how we are being pinched in California. So that's some good news as well. But my favorite piece of news is my friend Sonia Shaw. Because Sonia, I know many of you know, Chino Valley School District, one of our warrior moms, she has really put her own family at risk, her own self at risk, and she has done so many great things as a strong advocate for conservatives, for Christians, for parents in California. And I will tell you, I won't name the person, but someone that you know was listening to my show and I was interviewing Sonia, and that person wrote to me and said, she has no chance. And I was so bummed by that because I thought, well, how could that be? Because if you, I mean, all these other people that are running, and this was a category, this was a race that had probably 10 people, close to 10 people in it. And I was really kind of heartbroken when I heard that because I trusted this person's opinion. And so on election night, when I watched Sonia absolutely kill it and come in first place, and by the way, the only Republican to maintain her first place lead from election night today, it just, I mean, I have goosebumps thinking about it. I'm just really, really proud of her. And she truly is a grassroots candidate. I know there was some back and forth, and, again, we have to let some of these issues go and unify because guys, if we could get Sonia Shaw as superintendent of schools, if that's the only race we win at the top of the ticket, think about the message that sends to all of these nuts who are trying to transition our children in the classroom, who are trying to take parents out of the equation. This message would be huge across the country. I am telling you, it would be an earthquake for Democrats. And right now, she is really well positioned. She has 1.7 million votes. She had 22%. 1.5 million went to Richard Barrera, 20% of the vote. And I'll be real with you. The greatest thing about this race is nobody knows any of these candidates. So in many cases, you're going to have people picking names because that's how a lot of us vote who are not educated. And you see Sonia Shaw, you see a mom, you see, a female name. I'm just saying, I think there is a chance for Sonia to take it in November. I'm super proud of her, and I think we really need to rally behind her because I think, aside from governor and attorney general, sending a Republican into the superintendent's office would be great for our public relations moving forward. It would be such a great message. It would be one of those messages that demoralize Democrats. And we're looking for that right now. We need to show that we have some fight in California. So I'd say focus on that one as well. Coming up in November, we have several opportunities, and we really have to work on how we can turn more of our Republican voters out. All of us on this call turn out and vote. We research, we look at our voter guides, we show up. But there are so many Republicans, so many Christians, so many people that would be conservative voters that do not show up and are still not showing up. And it is absolutely heart-wrenching because not only are they leaving the state and saying, good luck, California. And I look, I can't be mad at it. It is expensive to live here. It's hard. The quality of life is not great. But not only are they leaving, the people here who are staying are just, they've given up. And as I just said, the word demoralized really applies to Republican voters in the state. They think that it doesn't matter. And so as we think forward to November, I really think that it is important for us to focus razor sharp on some of these races, yes. But we also have to think about our assembly races. Leticia Castillo, totally in this, Jeff Gonzalez. We need to make sure that they are able to win re-election. This congressional race, oh, it's just the Ken Calvert and Young Kim race. I have seen a lot of people asking Young Kim just to drop out because it got so dirty. We're going to have to make sure that we are kind of fighting through these and maintaining some sense of decorum so we don't kill our party, what's left of it. But we also have to figure out how to talk to people and get those people who are not participating back into the process. Because not only do we need them to show up to have any chance to get any of these candidates elected in very Democrat blue California, where we know there is cheating and voter fraud and all of the crazy stuff that happens, but we have to get voter ID passed. The initiative from Carl DeMaio is qualified. It will be on the ballot in November, but we are at the mercy of the Attorney General to do title and summary on this thing, which means they're going to get to name it. So as Carl DeMaio has said, it could be the Killing Kittens and Puppies Act and dumping their ashes on the playground, right? Do you support it? Yes or no? We all remember the gas tax. Do you want the gas tax? Well, vote no. If you want if you don't want the gas tax, vote yes. I mean, they're going to try their usual dirty tricks to prevent voter ID from going through. Because what would that kill? It would kill our mail-in ballots. You would actually have to have a human attached to a ballot. We have to get that done. And to do that, we need all hands on deck. So I think one of the things, and maybe Denise, this is one of the town halls, maybe it's how do we reach out to people who have lost hope? I mean, I think this is a huge brainstorming session opportunity for all of us because I've thought about things. I talk to everybody, and I always say this when I give my speeches and I talk on the air. I mean, wherever I am, grocery store, bank, wherever. I just, if I'm making small talk with somebody, I'll say, wow, the election's coming up. Have you voted yet? You planning on voting? I do it as a happy warrior. I don't insult people or call them idiots. And you can get a vibe right away if you know there's someone who's willing to talk. But beyond using ourselves literally as walking billboards, what can we do? Pastor Jack's done a great job of trying to get the churches turned out, but what more can we do? And I think I don't have a great answer, but maybe together we can come up with some strategies to turn out and try to connect with one another to try to push forward so that we can get that passed, so that maybe we have an opportunity to get some of these voters out there. I mean, there are so many different things that we can do, but there's no guarantees that we're going to have success in this election. I look at what happened to Spencer Pratt, and truly, you see the power of the Democrat Party. They didn't want Karen Bass to have to run against Spencer Pratt because Spencer Pratt would have called her out on everything. That would have woken people up. That would have been like, wait a second. He's right. He's another candidate, very much like Trump and Steve Hilton, where he's a populist, not an ideologue. He's a populist. I want to talk about solving problems. And so Karen Bass would have had to moderate to run against Spencer Pratt, but now she's going to get to go full blown nut and move to the left to run against a Democrat socialist. LA is in trouble. And that you can't tell me was done naturally. We had a whole slew, hundreds of thousands of ballots that came in after Election Day that elevated Nithya Raman to where she needed to be. And that wasn't the only thing. It also elevated the sales tax ER, which is going to raise the sales tax in Los Angeles by another half a percent. Half a percent doesn't seem like much, but when you've got 10% already, it means something. And the good news in California is that every other sales tax failed across the state. And it looked like Los Angeles was going to fail too until these ballots started coming in. And so we're walking the reason I bring this up again is that we're walking a really fine line here. We have to blow the whistle on what's happening in these elections so that we can make real change. But we have to do it in a way that doesn't disenfranchise people. Because as President Trump said in 2024, we have to make it too big to rig. We have to make it too big to rig for the golden ticket. We have to make it too big to rig for Leticia Castillo. We have to make it too big to rig for voter ID. And so we have to call out the problems in the system while still telling people you can't give up on it. You still have to participate. That's the challenge for us right now. More than any candidate or how the numbers play out, that is the challenge for us, is figuring out how we can call out the many problems that we know exist, but do it in a way that makes people still say, hey, I want to stay, I want to fight, I want to turn out. And I think that really comes down to not what the party's doing, because look, the Republican Party, you can say a lot about what they've done, what they haven't done. The Democrats are better at this than we are. And that is they go to Skid Row. They go and get homeless people to vote. Shady, yes, makes us crazy, but illegal, no. So what are Republicans prepared to do? Are we going to be getting into a foot race with Democrats to try to hightail it to nursing homes the day that mail-in ballots go out? Yeah, we should. We should have a plan for that, but we don't. And so that's where we're kind of lacking at this point. And I don't think that we can rely on the state party to figure that out for us. We have to figure out in our own counties what our strategy is, because I don't think that help is coming from that state party. Um, I don't think that there, I mean, look, I think that there's plenty of function for the state party. I think I like that Corinne Rankin was out with Steve Hilton today. I like that she's showing up. I will say that. I heard that her speech was less than stimulating, but look, I'm glad she's showing up. What I don't what I think though is that we can't just rely on the state party to fix things. We have to fix it county by county, and that's why these meetings are so important. Um, I'd love to, Denise, with your permission, if we wanted to leave a little bit of time for permission. I'm actually doing CNN tonight. I'm going into the
Yes.
devil territory. So I leave in about like 9, 10 minutes. So if there's questions,
Yes.
if something I didn't touch on, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. So I know there was a couple questions in the chat. So let's do this. Jennifer has covered everything. Let's go ahead and do our question and answer. Raise your hand, and then we'll call on you in order to ask questions. And I believe, who was the person that kept asking the questions? So one was, please explain how each person in LA County Register actually counts the absentee ballot and checks the signature. Doesn't
Yeah.
make sense.
So I actually talked to, was it Bill? I've been talking to Bill Asaley a lot lately,
Good.
by the way. And there are investigations underway. And here's the thing. I looked up today, if the Supreme Court decision comes down about votes not being accepted after Election Day, would they do anything with this primary election cycle? And the answer is probably not. It would be really
Okay.
hard. You'd have to prove, you'd really have to go through a lot of hoops to try to make it retroactive. And you'd have, but here's what's interesting is that one of the things I read is that you'd have to prove that the amount of fraud justified an overturning of the election. And you could do that because all
Okay.
of those votes for Nithya Raman came in after Election Day. So it would be interesting if we had someone who was sharp enough and quick enough to get something going before July 6th with the Supreme Court decision. The way the signature verification goes is that they take the ballots, they run the ballot signature through a machine. If the machine says, hey, this doesn't look right, those ballots are pulled aside for scrutiny. Now, then that's human. And so you tell me what a human is going to say. I mean, is it going to be an X? Is it going to be a smiley face? And they're like, wink and nod, that's a Nithya Raman voter, and they pass it through. Well, Denise Payne signs her ballot with a different, A instead of, in her name. And
Right.
there's, oh, this one needs to be cured. That's one thing that I didn't bring up is that one of the good things we have in California is the Secretary of State website. It is essential that every single one of you, and you should tell your friends, go to the Secretary of State website, make sure it says that your ballot was accepted and
Mm.
counted because there are still a large number of ballots that need to be cured. And if you take that initiative, you save the campaign's money trying to track you down to cure the ballot. So, yeah, the way it works in Los Angeles is that it's by machine. If the machine pulls it out, it's scrutinized by a human, and then they decide whether or not to count or put the ballot in for curing. That's the way I understand it.
Yep. Let's see. There was another question. Let me see if I can find it. Joan, is it Arnie?
I'm here.
Go ahead and
Joan.
raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Okay, go ahead.
Here.
Is this Joan?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi.
Go ahead and
I,
ask.
I just wanted to know about Gavin Newsom trying to take the power of the superintendent of education away because we all want Sonia Shaw to win, but
Yeah.
it looks like his bill is out there, or his whatever you want to call it, his authority is trying to usurp hers. So what
Yes.
is here?
That's her, it was so, I think we all remember when Gavin Newsom eerily said, we have a break the glass
Mhm.
scenario. Remember when they thought it was going to be Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco? We have a break the glass scenario.
Yes.
They have a lot of plans for if Republicans can pull off a win. And they're scared, I think, of Sonia because they see the same thing that we're all seeing, that she looks pretty well positioned in this race. So, yeah, it's possible the governor can take away her power, but we could also fight it. And there's also, again, that public shaming that really matters. Let's get her over the finish line and then we'll worry about that because I think that it would look so bad for Gavin Newsom, who wants to be president, to try to take away the power of a mom of a Republican who just won the superintendent in California. So it's a threat. Certainly, he's talked about it, but I'd say at this point, let's just get her across the finish line and let's see what happens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Arnie, you want to go
Okay.
ahead and unmute yourself? Go for it.
Sure, thank you. So something that I say in every call or meeting an opportunity, and that's, I believe it's 17.8% of the registered voters in the state of California who are the most exploited and even groomed by the Democrats. And
Yeah.
that's the renters. And as a rental property owner, I can't for the life of me get the California leadership Republican Party to recognize that. And they're not, and I've done this before, but it's not hard to get those votes. A number of us were out when if you would have watched Steve Pratt, when we were all out in the Hyde Park area, where
Mhm.
as a volunteer for LAPD for many years, I investigated homicides. And in that neighborhood for that event, and it was all over the news and so forth, you would have seen all of those renters in that community on their own, wearing the hats, wearing the t-shirts,
Yeah.
and distributing the signs. So if we have any other rental owners on here, I'd be very interested in speaking with them, and also the renters as well,
I
because
think
there's a
that's
lot
such
of
a
things that we can do
fabulous.
to fix this.
You're
Hmm?
so right about that, especially apartments, these multi-dwelling units become a hot spot for the voter fraud as well.
Yeah, and I have a system and process how we can do it. I've done it with other owners, but we need to scale this up. We can do it quickly, and it significantly lowers the cost per vote.
Huh,
I'll put
that's,
my email in there.
I'd
Yeah,
love to
if
see
anybody
that.
would like.
That'd be
Mhm.
great. Thank you, Arnie.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back in the first recall of Gavin Newsom, Dawn and my husband Glenn came up with a program to educate people. So, Arnie, for example, you went and talked to other rental companies or owners, and then the rental people. It's going out and talking to people. You
Yeah.
know, like Jennifer said, in the grocery store. I was in Sam's today, and I talked to the gal that was folding clothes, and I told her so. She goes, "You know so much," and I go, "It's not that hard. Just you
Yeah.
have to get involved. You can't just read the voter guide because it's not in English."
It's
So,
trying to mislead you. Mhm.
yes, exactly. So,
Right. And just
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say if there's any other rental owners on here, I've been very involved in rental housing trade associations, and most of them aren't getting it, other than wanting to raise some money and so forth. There's a very simple system and process. It builds, all of this adversarial between owners and renters has been pretty much been facilitated by either the elected officials, the unions, and the
Mhm.
nonprofits. The nonprofits
Okay.
that like to sue the law enforcement and the owners and everybody else.
Okay.
So I'll put my contact in there if anybody else would like to reach out. I have a presentation called Renters Do Vote, if anybody would like to see it. And I also share it with other candidates as well.
Great.
That's great. That is great.
Thank you.
Love it.
Okay. Any other questions for Jennifer before she leaves you? David, go ahead.
Just got a question here. It says that I'm just trying to get this right. If if uh, uh, if a candidate gets 51% of the vote, do they automatically get in?
In local elections, yes. So for instance, if Karen Bass in Los Angeles had gotten 50% plus one vote, she would have won outright. That would have sparked a runoff, but those are the local elections.
Local election. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Jennifer, do you have to jump off at 7:49?
I love you guys. If you're up late, watch me. I'll be on CNN at 9:34 and 10:34.
9:34 and how
And
many
10:30.
seconds?
I know that's TV. 9:34 and 10:34. I was on Fox News last Friday, literally for 4.5 minutes. But you know what? It's
Oh my
TV.
gosh.
Thank you guys all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you for all
Bye.
you do. Bye. Well, that's it for our show, but we will have another show. I'm lining up speakers. Letitia Castillo, I'm working with her, and with Kelly Sky, it's Ashley Skakowski, and she runs an awesome podcast called A Time to Stand. And she digs into what the schools are teaching and what they want to do. It's called Whole School, Whole Community. And basically, you don't need the parents anymore. They just go to the schools. Schools feed them, provide clothes, educate them. and turn them off their parents. So this is really important. This is another reason why we need to get Sonia Shaw in to stop that junk. So anyway, please be on the lookout for our email where I can, we will send you information when our next event is going to be. I don't think anything's going to happen in July, but what is happening in July? It's our Independence Day, 250 years. So, little plug for the Richard Nixon Library. They've got a great exhibit on the 250th anniversary of our country. Did you know the mission in San Juan Capistrano, they are also celebrating their 250th anniversary. So I'm actually going down there tomorrow with some friends. It's a great place. You can take the Metrolink and walk and have a great time. So great information. This is recorded. We will put this up on our Facebook and on our other pages. But we've got to educate our friends and family. This is how we can make a difference. And this really, this primary was a good starting point. People are tired of what's going on in our state. We look like a laughing stock for the United States and really the world. Our elections affect the world. We have to think about that. People see how we vote, and our state affects the rest of the country. So do we want to look like the laughing stock, or do we want to look like how we used to be, a bright and shining star, the golden state, as Steve calls it? So anyway, we're going to go ahead. John, do you have another question? Or David, do you have another question?
Yeah, I got a question.
Sure.
I should have write it down. I forgot. Never mind. I forgot it.
You sure? I love your sweatshirt and your picture. So anyway, keep an eye out on our email and we'll let you know when our next show will be. And thank you so much for coming on. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful Independence Day. Thank God that we have the country have, and let's not lose the rights, the God-given rights he has given us. So good night, everybody. And keep an eye on our email and our Facebook page for the next shows.